Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Diane Malik, and I'm the Business Services Advisor at the Arlington Heights Memorial Library. And I'm really excited to bring you this program tonight because it's about a new online resource that we have at the library, and it's called Size Up Arlington Heights. And I am going to go ahead then and turn it over to Armando.
Thank you, Diane, and good evening, everybody. I'm Armando Morales, and I am with Size Up. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through this new tool that we partnered with Arlington Heights so that we can better help small businesses and entrepreneurs in your community. I promise it won't be too PowerPoint heavy, but I do have a quick PowerPoint presentation, and then I'm going to go over to your website and walk you through the new tool and how to use it. Without any further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen. So Diane, if I could just get a thumbs up that you are seeing my PowerPoint presentation. Perfect. All right. So welcome everybody to the live demonstration of Size Up Arlington Heights. Here we have the direct link to the website, to the widget. arlingtonheights.sizeup.com. We've shortened it to make it easier to remember so that you can go directly to it. So Size Up, what is it? Well, it is a business intelligence tool for you. So we know that small businesses and entrepreneurs don't have access to the same data and resources that big businesses or like the Deloittes and the McKinseys of the world. So what Size Up does is we take a lot of different data sources and we make that same data available to you so that you can optimize your decision making. Size Up also provides it at all hours of the day, weekends, 24/7, because we know that small businesses and entrepreneurs have an incredibly busy schedule and they can only work on it typically after their business or even during business hours while they're tending shop. So we make sure that we are available when you are. Also, Size Up is simple to use. We don't ask for NAICS or SIC codes because we know that 95% of small businesses don't know them. So we speak the same languages that they do. When I say the same language, meaning if you're an Italian restaurant, you simply type in Italian and then that will pop up. If you are a dentist, start typing in dentist and that will pop up, as opposed to having to know that you're 7,294 on the NAICS or SIC code. We also know that there's different levels of tech savviness. So we've created a report generator so that you can also use this, take this offline and have that physical piece of paper so that you can review it the way that you like to. All right, so since we are focused on small businesses and entrepreneurs, we like to keep track of the trends. Here you see the business formations for the United States. What I want you guys to look at right here is this right here is the start of the pandemic. We thought this was the trend, so we were quite worried, but it shot fantastically in the opposite direction. And even when it came down, it's the lowest low is still higher than any of the previous highs. Now, the US is a big country, so we look a little bit closer, we look at the Midwest, and the same trend continues. Now, Midwest is also still a big area. We look at Illinois, and it still continues to have that same trend. So it is a positive note. There are more business formations happening more than ever, but we still need to be wary of business failure rates. So what we have here is the business failure rate in the first 5 years. And as you can see in year 5, it's close to 50% of small businesses fail within their first 5 years. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. If we take a look a little bit more intimately at the data, we can see that 37.5% of those businesses that do fail die due to a natural death. Now, this occurs when the market shifts, new innovations occur, things like that. So if you're still selling rental DVDs, but everybody's gone to streaming, you might have an issue. Same thing with doing horseshoes when everybody's moved on to cars, so on and so forth. So not as much that SizeUp can do for those situations. However, if we look at the bigger percentage of why businesses fail, 62.5% of them fail due to a lack of preparation. Now, that is where SizeUp can really come in and help and is powerful. SizeUp provides the objective lens of data to help optimize your decisions so you can be better prepared to, instead of surviving, you can thrive. So now a little bit about the widget itself. We talked a little bit about this earlier, the way you can search. So you can search as broad as you want. So like if we're going in the retail, you can look at restaurants. You can be a little bit more specific and look at Italian, and then even more specific looking at pizza. Another quick example, if we look at the transportation, we can look at into as broad as automotive, a little more specific at vehicle maintenance, and then even more specific at motor repair. One more example, manufacturing, we can look as broad as that. We can look at a little bit more specific in plastics and even more specific in plastic foams. Now, these are just some examples. We'll go through some different examples while we're in the widget itself. And granted that the data is available, we start at the smallest level possible. So looking at the bottom here at neighborhood or the block level data, we provide that if it's there, and then we provide all of the ones up and up so that you can compare and benchmark yourself to the other scales. Now, a little bit about some of the modules. You will have access to 4 very powerful modules that each do their own thing. So you have the My Business module, which will allow you to benchmark your business to like industries in your geography. You'll have access to the competition module, where you'll be able to see your ecosystem. You'll be able to see who your competitors are, who your potential customers are, and discover new suppliers. You'll have access to the advertising module, where you'll be able to look at the best return on investment to maximize your marketing dollars, to find the best location to advertise in. Last but not least, you'll have access to the demographics modules, which will have 3 different report types: demographics, labor force, and consumer expenditures. And you can search in a whole host of different ways so that you can ask and answer open-ended questions. And one more time, that link right here, the direct link is right here, arlingtonheights.sizeup.com. So that's it for the PowerPoint part of this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to your website. So Diane, if I could get a, where'd you go? If I could get a thumbs up that you see your website in my browser. Perfect. All right. So if you go directly to Arlington Heights Memorial Library, ahml.info, to find SizeUp, you can go ahead and go to all data, or under research, which it is a research tool, go to all databases. And then we have it right here, front and center, Arlington, SizeUp Arlington Heights, or you can go ahead and go directly to the S, and you can find SizeUp Arlington Heights, click on that, and then it'll take you directly to the website, which again, that direct link right there is arlingtonheights.sizeup.com. All righty. So just like I stated before, we make this easy and simple to use. The only 2 things that you need to know to get started are what industry you're looking in and what your location. So for the first example, I'm going to go ahead and go into attorneys. So let's say maybe I'm fresh out of law school, or maybe I've already done 10 years of being a lawyer. I want to open up my own law firm over here. So I go ahead and put attorneys in, put Arlington Heights, and now we're taking to our 4 modules that we described earlier. The My Business module, the competition module, advertising module, and the demographics. So we're going to go ahead and go through all of these, but we're going to go ahead and start from left to right, doing the My Business module. Here, you'll see that there's a whole host of different benchmarks. and that you can compare your business to like industries in your geography. So Diane, quick question for you on the first benchmark or KPI, key performance indicator. What do you think the annual average revenue of a attorney's office makes? Now, keep in mind, this is total revenue or revenue and not profit.
I have no idea. I don't know about that.
And that's a perfectly legitimate answer, because most small business and entrepreneurs, when they're looking to get started, have no idea. They might have a product or a service that they think is great, but aren't sure what the actual logistics are or what they're actually going to make. So that's where Size Up is really powerful, and it illuminates you to all of these different benchmarks. So
is it better to guess and put zero, or like put like 500,000, or better to put zero?
Probably 500,000.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and go with that. All right. So we see here that in the city of Arlington Heights, it's actually higher than the rest of the scales. So 500,000 is, if that's what you think you're going to be making in the city of Arlington Heights, you may want to adjust your expectations. Now, while we have it at the different scales here, as you can see, we also have it, if we look at the heat map, we have it at the zip code level as well. So while we see what the average is in the city, we can see that not all areas of the city are created equal. We can see where they're making less on the 600 to 850K, and then also where they're making more, the 1.4 to 1.5 million. Another thing that I want to point out is that while you see at the zip code level, you can zoom out. And then if you zoom out, you can see a few more zip codes, zoom out even further, and then we get it by the county level. So we can see that. And then if you want to go out even further, you can see it at the state level so that you can compare as well. Now we're going to go ahead and run through all of the other benchmarks here so that you can get an idea of all that there is. So here we have year started. I'm going to go ahead and type in 2012. Now this is going to be the amount of businesses that have opened up in a given year. This will not account for business closures, just the ones that have opened up in a given year. So looking at this, we can see that it is at all scales. Now, if the nation is too big, we can simply click it off, and then we can see all of the other ones at each of the different scales. For this one, let's go ahead and take off the state. And then what's great about this is it shows you the trends of business openings, which kind of gives an indicator of the health of that particular industry. Here we can see that it's pretty consistent and it's still moving up, which gives good vibes that this industry is still healthy. Now, if we were looking at something like rental DVDs or some of those that we mentioned earlier, we might see that trend go in the opposite direction, which would be potentially cause for pause or concern to look and evaluate a little bit further. Now, moving on to salary. Salary and employees are some of the biggest overhead costs for small businesses and entrepreneurs getting started. So it's very important to get these right. So for salary, let's go ahead and go with 60,000. We are in the attorneys. Wow, I really undershot it. Now, what I was thinking was, because it's an aggregate average, it's taken into account the attorneys, the paralegals, secretaries, and all of that. But I still was undershooting. So looking at this, if I'm thinking that I'm going to pay my employees 60,000, most likely I'm not going to be very competitive, and I'm probably not going to get a lot of job applications. But moving down, you have access to something even more niche, hourly wage by occupation. So while we had the aggregate average over here we can get more specific, looking at each individual occupation. So things that work in an attorney's. So let's go ahead and type in lawyers, and then we can see it populate by average hourly wage and median hourly wage. Let's go ahead and type in another one. Let's see, paralegals and legal assistants. And then let's also type in legal secretaries and administrative assistants. Perfect. So now we can go down and we can compare each one of these and we can separate what we need to pay each of these types of occupations that make up our particular industry or our particular shop. Moving on to the next one, employees. It is very important to get this one correct because you hire too many employees, that increases the overhead of your business. You hire too few and you might not be able to service your clients. So I'm going to go ahead and go with a round number of 10 employees. Wow. And it looks like I may be a very large small business with 10 employees. So it looks like most of the industry is getting by with 3 or less. Now, looking at the heat map, it looks like there are also some with 4 in certain areas. So while this is the average, there are little nuances here that are illuminated by the heat map as well. But for the most part, it looks like in the city, it's still 2, which means that if we come back over here, we're probably looking at a lawyer and a secretary, or maybe a lawyer and a legal assistant, et cetera, et cetera. So moving on to the next one, cost effectiveness. Now here it looks like I am below average for my cost effectiveness. Now, the way we got there is this is a combination of the previous inputs that we did. So the annual average revenue, so we're making less than the average in the industry. We are paying less though, and we have more employees. So even though we're paying less, we do have more employees, which probably averages out. And we are also making, I think it was about 400,000 less than the average lawyer's office. So this is why in our cost effectiveness, we fall below average. So this is quite a little bit of a journey here. So we start off with things that we think are our benchmarks if we have no idea. And then we see over here, it all comes to a head when we look at the cost effectiveness when it combines all of our inputs. Now moving on, revenue per capita. We like to slice the data in multiple different ways so that you can view it whichever way is best for you. So here we have revenue per capita, or the quality of those dollars spent. And just like the previous heat maps, you can zoom into the zip code level or zoom out and look at it by county or by state. Now we also have total revenue by zip code. Now here it's different because it's the first benchmark was average annual revenue, while this one is total. So it kind of shows you a concentration of those businesses in the industry or the quality of it, looking at which areas are making more. Kind of gives you an idea of potentially a saturated market or where the market is saturated. Now, the next benchmark, local retention, we can see the percentage of workers typically retained in the industry. So here it looks like we have a high retention rate. Oops. Are you still seeing my screen? Oh, there we go. My computer went out for a second, but we are back. So here, based on the 10 employees that I had, if let's say I lose 5 of them, I can look at this at the objective lens of data that is not the industry norm, and I may be doing something wrong. And as we saw from earlier, based on the amount that we're paying them and what they can get everywhere else, that might be our answer in this particular case. Now, if it were the opposite and we're only losing 1 employee, then we can pat ourselves on the back and say, this is normal, this is going to happen, this is going to be what our typical HR load is going to be for new trainees and everything. And this makes sense considering that the employees average about 2 to 4 employees in the industry, in the area. All right, moving on to healthcare costs and workers' comp. In the past, these are typically opaque to small businesses, and these are pretty straightforward. So you can see what you are paying within the state. All right, and then workers' comp, premium per employee, here you can see. And then we have, last but not least, we have this we have arrived at our last two benchmarks, open hours and online presence. So open hours, if I am a law office, I'm assuming I'm going to be working, or at least my open hours are going to be around 50 hours. Let's see how close I've gotten. And it looks like it's a little bit more than the average for the city, and definitely more than the nation as a whole. So here we go and we can see the percentages of businesses open in a given day of the week. As you can see, it's pretty heavy throughout the week, and you can see it at the different scales. Here you can see at the city, metro, and the US. Now, it definitely falls off on the weekends, but we can see what percentages of those businesses are open on a given day. So it looks like in Arlington Heights, about 3 or 8% still stay open on Saturdays. I imagine this is to get those that are in need of on the weekend. And then Sunday is about the same. So it looks like if we're going to make any kind of assumptions, it looks like the same businesses that are open on Saturdays most likely are open on Sundays as well. And it looks pretty consistent for the US and the metro as well. Now, of those businesses that are open on a given day of the week, we can see what their typical daily open hours are by average or by median, which gives us a better idea of what their hours of operations are. It looks like it's typically 9 to 5 throughout the week. And then, wow, it's a big day on Saturday if you're an attorney. Now, keep in mind that we saw earlier, this is only accounts for 8% or 3 businesses here. So what's going to be actually typical is the Monday through Friday, but if you are looking to tap into that market, this is what you're typically going to, this is what's going to be typical. All right. Now, last but not least, one of my favorites is online presence. So there are many ways that you can market yourself and promote yourself online. However, that takes a lot of time and resources. So here we see where the industry is promoting itself currently. So let's say I want to focus on a website. So I am sizeup.com. And I can see that I am in the 73rd percentile of those that have a website. So it looks like the majority are focusing on their online presence as with a website. Now, if we look at Facebook, we can, let's say I do have a Facebook. It's up. And if I were to look at the difference between the two, or if I'm looking at where I want to focus my business efforts, it looks like at this present time, I probably would want to focus on a website as opposed to a Facebook page. Now, moving on to the other ones, we have Instagram. Let's say I don't have one. Now I would be on the 93rd percentile of those in that, looking at promoting myself on Instagram. So it looks like lawyers are not looking to promote themselves there as much. LinkedIn, I would assume that there would be some size up bids. So while it is more than Instagram, it's not super significant. So I know that if I have limited time and resources, I would still be focusing more on a website. Now, let's go ahead and say that we don't have a Twitter or a YouTube. It is pretty similar to LinkedIn and YouTube, while it is about the same as Size Up and Twitter. So now that we've done all of this, now what? We can go ahead and click this summary view button here, and we can get a health dashboard of all of the inputs that we just entered. So here we can see where there is more or less activity on an online presence. We can see where the total open hours is, or where we fall on the total open hours, and all of the other previous inputs that we've done. One of the things that I do want to point out is, as it was stated before, you can generate reports. So we've entered all of this. We can click this PDF button here, and then it will generate a report with all of the information that we just went over. And then we can go ahead and print that, put it in our business plan. We can take it to the bank to show that we understand the market in our geography, or we can just use it to study what the market is so that we can do our future planning. So that's a quick look at the report here generated for the different benchmarks that we were looking at: salary, salary, employees, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the My Business module, being able to use different benchmarks to compare yourself to like industries in your geography. Now I'm going to take a quick look at the chat to see if there are any questions that I can answer at this time. Awesome. It looks like everything has been answered, and most of them are comments. And yes, as Diane said, feel free to use the chat to ask me any questions throughout this presentation. All right.
Armando, there was one question after that. Maybe it just didn't scroll far enough. Are you going to be adding additional industries in the future?
So yes, as they come up, the interesting thing about this is new industries are popping up all the time. However, the way they're categorized, sometimes they fall into other ones. So let's see if I can think of an example. One of those that is now kind of risen up is eyebrow threading. So I don't remember what it fell under when it first came. It was kind of other, and now I think it falls into something like personal care, things like that. So as industries grow, they get moved into certain categories and then eventually become their own categories. But yes, we're working with our data vendors all the time to bring in new industries when they have reached maturity. I hope that answers your question. All right, so before I move on to the next module, I do want to point out that whichever module that you're in, an I button will appear here. And if you click on it, it will bring down a video that's 1 minute or less explaining or walking you through and explaining what that particular module does and how to use it. So while I know that this is a lot of information to intake, there is a tool here, a video to help you self-navigate as well. All right, moving on to the second module, the competition module. Here, we can take a look at your ecosystem with 3 very important tabs: the competitors tab, the customers tab, and the suppliers tab. So just to mix it up a little bit, we'll go ahead and change the industry here. I'm going to go ahead and look at beauty salons. All right, so we've clicked on beauty salons, and just like Google, you can see here that it auto-populates with the top 10 hits. Now this starts off from the geographic center of Arlington Heights, and then it works its way out. And while you can see the list here and you can see where they're located, you can also click on either here or here, and you can get more information about your competitors. So we can see where there's clusters of them. We can look at the hits and see if they're mom and pop shops, big box stores, and then we can click on these and get more information about them, our competitors. Do they have a website presence? Do they have a phone number listed? Do they have social media? And then we can go ahead and click on them and explore that and see what they're offering and what we're competing against. Additionally, if you think that you're competing against multiple industries, you can click here and then you can add even more industries. So if you think you're also doing competing against hair salons as well, you can click on that. Or I think I even saw hair treatments. We can click on that, and then it will populate and it will add those businesses, and you'll be able to see once you click on each of the pages, those industries that you selected will all be represented. Now, moving on to the second tab, the customers tab, because we do need to build a prospective customer base if we're just starting, or even if we are still, or if we've already established, but we want to look for more prospective customers. That's what we can do here. Now, the industries, and this, please keep in mind, this is business to business. And it starts off blank because who knows who your customers are better than you do. So if I'm a beauty salon, I'm probably going to target those that are typically going to be in front of an audience. So those that come to mind right away are going to be things like our last example, attorneys. Let's see what else. Government, they're going to have to go in front of things like council, do public talks, open houses, things like that. And then et cetera, you get the idea there. And we can continue to build on industries like that. And here, just like the competitions tab, we can go ahead and click on each one of these and we can see information about them and build a prospective customers list. In addition to seeing where our customers are, we can also look right here at this button where it says consumer spending, and we can look at where the consumer expenditures are happening. So what makes sense if we navigate personal care, and we're beauty salons, we're going to go ahead and do hair care, and then we're going to go ahead and look at those right there. So if we scroll down, we can look at the legend, and we can see where consumers are spending their money by block group. So in addition to seeing where our potential customers are, we can see where the consumer expenditures are by block group. Here we can see this by total or by average, so that we can get a better idea of either where we want to target maybe our advertising or target where we are going to locate to be closer to where consumers are already spending their dollars. All right, let me go ahead and take that off so I declutter the map for our final tab, the suppliers tab. Every business needs to get their supplies from somewhere. So let's see. I'll start typing in something. What makes sense? Beauty salons, equipment, and wholesale. So we click on that. And then as a beauty salon, I'm probably also an office. So I probably want to get office supplies. So I'm going to go ahead and look at stationery and office supply wholesale. And then just like the previous tabs, it will start to populate and we can see all of those businesses get some of their information, and we can explore their offerings. If we can see if they're providing a different product that we've never seen that might be of interest, same products that may be a better price, or if they're close in close proximity, it will cut down on maybe logistics cost as well. All right, so those were the 3 tabs in the competition module, making up your ecosystem. The competitors tab, seeing who your competitors are. Is it mom and pop shops, big box stores, and then where are there clusters of them? The customers tab, building a prospective customers list so that you can add to your customer base. And then, of course, your suppliers tab, so you can discover potential new suppliers. Just like the previous module, you can click the PDF button and you can generate a report of all of those hits with all of the contact information, the info cards that were on each of those, so that you can take those and have that physical copy. So I'm going to pause real quick right there to look at the chat. All right, Jean, thank you for your question. I'm going to go ahead and save that for the end so I can get to, but that is a great question and I will get back to it. All right, moving on to the advertising module. Small businesses and entrepreneurs don't have the same budget that big businesses do, to where they can promote themselves on every social media, run ads, things like that. So we have to be smart about how our small business have to be smart and targeted how they advertise. So let's go ahead and jump into dentists in Arlington Heights. So because the budget is much smaller, we allow 6 different approaches, and then beyond that, allow you to filter even further to look at the best zip codes based on your searches to advertise it. So we have total annual revenue, revenue per capita, underserved markets, average revenue, total employees, and household incomes. So if maybe we're a newer dentist and we're looking to get our foot in the door, maybe we're looking to go to an untapped market. In that particular scenario, I would looking at underserved markets. So I'll click that, and all of my zip codes will be arranged by underserved markets. which is the lowest amount of revenue generated per resident in the industry. So if the industry serves the local area, then the businesses within the area are spending less than average, which may mean that there is an opportunity for new businesses within that industry to take advantage of untapped markets. So even with all that said, 30 zip codes may still be quite a bit to advertise in, and I want to filter that a little bit further. So we click on here, this filters, and we can go ahead and extend our search all the way nationwide if we wanted to. Now, the reason for this is maybe not applicable in the dentist industry, but other markets such as, or other industries such as the hotel industry, or even things that are dealing in niche products like comic book stores who deal in memorabilia and collectibles. But for now, geography matters much more for the, or it's matters as far as closer proximity for a dentist industry. We can filter even further by the demographic characteristics. So since we were looking at the underserved market, probably looking at making sure that the household income makes at least 20,000, but maybe not higher than 75. And you can see how the map zoomed in there, and we filtered down to 7 results. So maybe that's enough for me to say, oh, okay, I can consider 7 different zip codes. Now, when we look at this, we can see the different color variations where the redder it is, the higher intensity is based on our filters. So here we can see, if we click on these, we get a host of more information based on all of the different approaches. So population, annual revenue, revenue per capita, average revenue, total employees, and household income. Additionally, we can see the total population. So based on our approach and our filters, we can see where the best areas to advertise are. Now, looking at it a little bit deeper, we can also look at, in this particular case, I would take more into account some population. So here it's a higher amount of population and then higher amount of population. But those that are more familiar with the area might say that, well, even if it's a higher population, it might be a higher surface area to consider as well. So now that we've shown you where to advertise, so we filtered it down to the best areas where to advertise, but we don't tell you how to advertise. So if you're more comfortable with doing the physical ways of advertising, so targeting billboards, bus signs, traditional flyers, door to door, you can absolutely do that. And now you know the best areas to, or the best zip codes to do that. Or you can do online advertising such as Facebook, and do targeted ads that way. All right, so that was the advertising module, being able to use multiple approaches and filters to optimize your marketing and advertising dollars. I do not see any new questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the final module, the 4th module of 4, the demographics module. So here you can look at 3 different report types, and you can ask open-ended questions in 3 different types of ways. So the first, for a place which is familiar to most people, or should be familiar to most people, is you'll be able to search by city, county, or metro. So if we click on that, then we can see that the polygon changes to your metro area. But for this particular demonstration, we're going to go ahead and keep with the city. So the report type that we have here is the demographics, and this is generated for this area here. So we can see what the population is. We can see the sex, age distribution, race distribution, household income distribution, labor force status, total number of housing, educational attainment, size of household. Now, one of our previous business owners said that one of the ways that they targeted where they were going to open up their new coffee shop or their second location is based on their current patronage. And they discovered that the majority of the people that patronized their business had a bachelor's degree or higher. So they took a look at the demographics, and they went ahead and they looked more specifically at those bachelor's degrees. Now, I want to point out that each one of these has a percentage of the population here that fall in here, and then also the total. So here we can see that there's 18,592 or 34.33% of the population. Now, if we want to see that a little bit more specifically, we can toggle this on and we can look at block groups to see where the higher intensity of this total is. And we can do this by total or we can do this by percentage. So here we can either target, our advertising or look at potential locations to set up shop. Let me go ahead and toggle that off. And you can do the same thing with any of the previous demographics. So we can do that with race distribution. We can see whether there's more Hispanic or Latinos. We can do it by age distribution. We can look at millennials here. Same thing throughout all the plethora of information in the demographics overview. Now, the second way that you're able to search is within a customizable boundary. So here we can go ahead and create whichever boundary we want. Let's say we want to maybe stay on one particular side of a highway, or we want to avoid an area that's notorious for construction. We create this customized polygon. We click or select a report type. In this case, will be consumer expenditures, which we saw a glimpse of in the competition module. Create that, and then we can see what the consumer expenditures are happening in this particular boundary. We can see apparel, education, entertainment. So one quick example, if we are looking at, so we can see the total and we can see the average. I know that pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the US. Now, if I was looking to potentially either sell equipment or set up a potential facility there, I would probably be looking at one of these categories here to see where people are already spending their money on this type of entertainment. So recreational equipment and supplies, or even fees and admissions for things like clubs. Or sports clubs, to be more specific. So we click on recreational equipment and supplies, and then we can see again by block group. So we can see where the intensity of these dollars are being spent by total or by average. All right, so let me go ahead and toggle that off so the map isn't too cluttered. And then I'll quickly go over some of the ones that are in the consumer expenditures: food and beverage, healthcare, household furnishings and equipment, shelter, household operations, miscellaneous expenses, personal care, reading, tobacco, transportation, utilities, gifts, personal insurance, and contributions. So that brings us to our final and my favorite way of searching is through around an address. So I am going to steal the address of Arlington Heights Library, 500 North Dunton Avenue. So what this does, it will center the map and it will put essentially your business at the center of the world. Now, in this particular one, you can search two ways: by drive time or mile radius, which will give you a circular buffer, or as the crow flies from this location. Or we can look at minutes, and this will be by drive time. So you'll get a customized polygon of how far you can get within a 10-minute drive of 500 North Dunton Avenue. And then the last report type that we can search by is labor force. So now that all of those are set, we can create this report, and then we can see how far you can get within a 10-mile driving radius of this location. And we get all of the labor force statistics here: total establishments, total employees, establishment by size, total business by establishment type, and then total employees by occupation. Let's see, we have a few more here: total employees by major SIC, total employees by establishment type, and which has a whole host of information there. Now, let's see if I want to look for professional services, other business. Let's see which one really sticks out. I think I saw. Nope, there's so much information to look at over here. Let's go ahead and take a look at real estate. Let's go ahead and jump back to that previous example, entertainment and recreational services. So here we can go ahead and see where most people are working in the industry. So earlier we were looking at where people are spending their money. Now we're looking at where people are actually working in the entertainment and recreation services industry. And we can see where the intensity is, and it looks like it varies quite significantly, jumping in certain cases from 5 employees all the way to 8 to 10, and then all the way up to 19 in certain cases. So it gives you a better perspective. So you can see where the total amount and the percentage are, but once you toggle these on, you can see where the intensity of these are in a given area. And of course, you can see that by block group. And then if you zoom out, just like the previous heat maps, you can also see this by zip code. And then if you want to zoom out even further, by county and by state. And that was the demographics module, being able to get information about who lives and works in your area in 3 different ways, 3 different report types: the demographics, consumer expenditures, labor force, and you can ask and answer these open-ended questions in 3 different ways: around an address with a customized boundary, or for traditional place boundaries such as city, county, and metro. That was 4 of 4 modules. I'm going to go ahead and now transition over to Q&A. I see that there are some questions, and I know that we had one previously that I was going to hold till the end. So thank you for your question, Jean. What about a small entrepreneur that might do a niche business like making window treatments or something really small? What constitutes crossing the threshold for your industry to be included? So that's an interesting question that goes into the data. So I believe there have to be at least 1,000 businesses in a given, or 1,000 of the same businesses to be included in a given industry. So like for eyebrow threading, if there are 900 businesses across the US, it won't be included. However, if it crosses that threshold of 1,000, then there's enough information or enough businesses within the country to be able to be included in a given industry. Thank you for your question, Jean. Moving on to the next one. How do you gather your data and what bias might exist in this data? All right, so let me go ahead and jump back to the PowerPoint to answer this one. All right. Diane, can I get a thumbs up that you are seeing my, all right, perfect. So we like to think of our data in different forms of buckets. So here you can see the different kind of buckets where we've inputted some of these. Now, looking a little bit more specific at some of these buckets, we get the data from hundreds of different data sources, and we've combined all of them. And some of those include, like if we're looking at industry-specific information, we get those from public data sources, federal business filings, use the stock market, professional licenses, county courthouse filings, annual reports, and well, this actually needs to change, but we take about 15 million plus different business or data points that are included in SIZA. For the demographics, we use a bunch of the publicly available information, and we combine all of them for the widget that you see here. We've got the US Census, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Bureau of Economic Analysis, HUD, Patent Office, Post Office, et cetera, et cetera. And for the geographic data, now we use things for like the interface that you saw, like in the background, we use like Google Maps. We also look at local government and take some of their information from their shapefiles, their maps, public and proprietary information as well. And all of those combine to provide you the widgets that we saw earlier. Now, one of the things that I do want to add, depending on where you are in the widget, the data will be updated different periods of time. So if we're looking at the firmographic information, which you saw mostly in the competition module and some in the My Business module, those will be updated every 3 months. Things like the demographics will be once to twice a year because it is coming from public information. That's when they update the data. I hope that I was able to answer your question, Keith. If not, please go ahead and enter it again in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. Let me go ahead and stop sharing, jump back into the widget. All right. As perhaps a somewhat related question, can you speak more to the sources of the data? You mentioned that you have data providers. Can you mention specific providers or provider types, public, federal, private? I hope I was able to answer that one with Keith's question as well. If not, if you want to clarify a little bit more specifically, go ahead and elaborate a little bit for me, Chris, in the chat. Victoria, if there's time at the end, could you review how to access the site? I missed the very beginning. Yes, absolutely. So you can go to ahml.info, and then we can go ahead and navigate to that again. Let's see. Oh, that's going to be ahml.info. So there's two ways. We can go ahead and go to Arlington Heights Memorial Library. We can go ahead and go to research, and it will fall under all databases. And we have Size Up Arlington Heights right here, which will take you directly to the widget. Or you can search right here under S, and it will appear on Size Up Arlington Heights. Or you can go directly by going to the direct website, arlingtonheights.sizeup.com. And that will take you directly to the widget. Victoria. All right. Let's see. Jean, can you search by, oops, Zoom's acting up on me. Okay, can you search to see by trends, such a pickleball and other things that are rising in popularity to see what areas might be good to explore for ideas? So we get as specific as we can, but certain things like this, like right now, pickleball might not be its own. It would fall under things like sports facilities, just like, baseball facilities, tennis facilities, things like that. Those will still fall under certain higher categories, just simply because there's not enough for it to be its own, and even in even more localized areas. So we get as close as we can with the data, but unfortunately, it doesn't always work to where you can search specifically for something like pickleball or eyebrow threading at this given time. Chris, I may have missed this earlier. How is our access to Size Up Arlington Heights different, if at all? Say then if the Events and Public Library subscribes, question mark. Is Arlington Heights just because HML is subscribing, or does it change our access to the data at all? I am not sure that, Evanston Public Library does not subscribe to Size Up, so they don't have it on their website. Let's see, let me reread your question to make sure I understand this. See if they were to subscribe. I'm not sure what the geography of Evanston Public Library is, but when different clients subscribe, the geography will always start at their location. So Arlington Heights will start at Arlington Heights and then work its way out. So if Evanston Public Library were to subscribe, you would start in their geography and work your way out. I hope that answers your question. Oh, it looks like, thanks, that answered my first question, missed it earlier. All right, perfect. We have Bill. We are coming close to time. I'll try and get through the rest of these. It will also appear in the business and nonprofits category for the databases, as well as business and nonprofits service pages, so lots of places to find it. Oh, I guess you were answering the previous question. Perfect, thank you, Bill. In In other words, what is growing fastest, question mark. So you're asking for percentage change. So one of the things that I can show you, while we don't have, I guess, from the past, we can do forecasts. So if we go to the demographics here, thank you for that question, Gene. That actually covers one of the topics that I missed. So here, if we look at the first thing, demographics, you can see we have 2022 data, and then we also have projected 2027 data. So you can see the percentage change for whatever report type that you're currently in. So if you're looking at consumer expenditures there, and you want to look at that, what is projected, you can also see that. Oh, it looks like I need to file in a bug report. Thank you for that. But for now, you can look at the demographics overview and you can see what the projected demographics are going to change like in the next 5 years to see these categories where they are going to, where they're potentially going to change. And scrolling down, I think that was the last question. So if that is the case, then I will go ahead and turn it back over to Diane for any closing remarks or statements.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Armando, for walking us through that. I'm sure everybody could see it's a pretty powerful database and there's a lot there. And don't worry if you don't feel like an expert on it yet. I've had a couple walkthroughs with Armando and I'm still, getting used to it and finding my way. But there's so much there and it can obviously be a very helpful tool. So I just want to make sure that you know that if you wanted to look at it together or, you feel overwhelmed by it and wait a minute, this is what I was trying to do and I'm not seeing how to do it anymore. Sometimes you go to these things and later on, you're still not sure how to do it. Please go ahead and reach out to me. I'm going to put my email right here for everybody, dmalik@ahml.info. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'd be happy to meet with you. Also, any other questions about business services at the library? I'm always happy to hear from anybody and everybody who's got any questions about that. There will be a survey that's sent to you through email for attending here. And we'd love it if you could please take a moment and just do a quick rating on that for us. And Bill, I think, do you have something else you want to say?
I just, because I like to cross promote a lot. I also like to point out that this is a fantastic new addition to what we have. We have an entire suite of tools that Diane has to work with. So there is Size Up. That's great for startups. We have another product called Legal GPS, which helps you kind of pre-think your way through for entrepreneurs through your legal needs. It doesn't replace a lawyer, but it gets you ready to talk to a lawyer in terms of starting up your business. For some of the consumer side in research you might do, we have a fantastic tool called Reference Solutions that lets you build possible customer lists on the consumer end, whereas this one's doing a lot of business to business. So you work with Diane, she's able to kind of pull all of this together and really be helpful across a lot of different products. So that's why we're very enthusiastic about this among other products.
That was a great overview. Thank you, Bill. I love it. Okay, and thank you, Armando, again for this. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your evening.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us, Diane.
Hey, thank you.